that I'm very passionate about. That is what I call mass participation as a strategy. And I'm wondering if it's maybe an opportunity that federations and cities might be missing out on. We've only got 5 minutes or so I'm just going to talk about 3 things, and I'm going to keep it fairly sharp. I'm going to give you a little bit of background about myself. I'm going to talk about a case study in Singapore, and we're going to talk about measurement, and specifically a study that we did called the mass participation ripple effect. So quickly moving on to myself, I've been together collaboration, best practice, research, education across the globe in the industry. I'm also the author of Mass Participation Sports Events, which many people in the industry tell me they see as their Bible for organizing in this space. So what then is mass participation? In its traditional sense, it's 5 main verticals: running, cycling, triathlon, obstacle racing, and swimming. In recent years, I've started to ask the question, and many others have, if that's mass participation, why aren't thousands of kids running around playing grassroots football, amateur players, netball, baseball, whatever your sport may be? Clearly, we could define that as mass. That globally, in my experience, most of that kind of happens by accident. It's driven private sector. I seldom see a real strategy around it from federations, and particularly from governments and cities. Private entrepreneurs taking the risk, delivering benefits to those other stakeholders which they're taking the risk on. And I'd love to share a really what I think is a great example of the ability of mass participation to make a huge impact. And that's taking us to Singapore, to the Standard Chartered Singapore Marathon. In about 2001, the event had been going for a number of years. It was about 1,500 participants on open roads, not particularly well organized. And Sports Singapore and Standard Chartered came together to create the first edition of a more commercial Standard Chartered Marathon. In this, they got about 3,000 participants, and in the space of just over a decade, that grew to 60,000 participants. And the impact that it had on the ecosystem that it created was enormous, and an example to share. So one of the sort of examples I often share, I was invited by JP Morgan in 2003 to come to Singapore to help them deliver the inaugural JP Morgan Corporate Challenge, the inaugural Asian version. And there were not enough barricades in Singapore. We had to truck them in from Malaysia at that stage. Fast forward now, there's multiple barricade companies, huge businesses creating employment, bringing revenue into the country, and all of the other support that goes around that, from ancillary services to the events, health and well-being around that, masseurs and dietitians and so on. So clearly it creates this ecosystem of its own, which I think is often not measured. As I mentioned, I think so often private enterprise takes the risk on that, and so often cities actually almost put obstacles in their way. The challenges of getting permits, venues which aren't necessarily appropriate, and sometimes federations coming in trying to kind of license that without necessarily providing support. And what it made me realize, I eventually ended up in my business there getting the full commercial rights to the Standard Chartered Singapore Marathon. And I had this wake-up call one day when I was getting a grant over here from Sports Singapore, and over here Sing Health, which is the health board, was fundamentally taking away 60% of that grant to provide my medical coverage for the event. And I thought, well, maybe the problem is that we're not, as an industry, telling the right story. And I now call this the tennis ball argument, where over here in traditional fence, and those of you that in many parts of sport will recognize this, you measure the traditional economic impact, number of inbounds by room nights, and some media values and so on. And I believe as an industry, and probably many other sports industries, we're missing what I'm now calling the basketball, which is the health and well-being impact. So in terms of trying to tell that story, I was lucky enough to find my way to an amazing man out of Australia, Peter Burrow, CEO, who's globally recognized neuroscience and behavioral economics expert. And I explained the challenge, and Peter said, look, I believe that we will be able to prove that there is a health and well-being ripple effect. One person training for and participating in something like the Singapore Marathon has a ripple effect which goes 10 people deep. We were equally then fortunate to get some funding support from Sam Renouf and the PTO, and we conducted a 3-month white paper study and presented a white paper. And the result of that, which was astounding, is that we believe that the ripple effect is actually 200 people wide, because it's not linear, it's actually compounding. The argument being that each of us has a circle of 6 key people of influence, and they have 6, and the next one has 6, and the next one has 6, and so on. So, I'm wondering here from a city perspective and also a federation perspective, what are we leaving on the table if we don't see mass participation as a deliberate strategy? I know there's lots of pitching going on at the conference for rights to be able to stage major events. How is your mix of paying for rights and creating homegrown events like the Singapore Marathon that could be impacting the health and well-being and also the commercial outcomes of your federations and so on? So I'm going to leave you with a challenge, and I'm going to challenge you to take a step back and say, do you have a strategy for mass participation? Whether you're a city, whether you're a federation, are you recognizing what you may be leaving on the table? And of course, I'd love to be able to help you on that journey if it's something that's of interest to you. So my details are up on the screen. Connect with me on social media or just email me directly, chris@massparticipationworld.com. I'd love to be able to help you. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks for listening.
So let's give Chris a round of applause. I think that was a superb, I'm sure you would agree, very, very clear, very pointed presentation. Actually, Chris can hear us, I have to say, Chris. I have to be very nice to you. But obviously, he was desperate to be here, but it just wasn't going to work out this time. And I think, when you think yesterday we spoke about city activation and the like, right, you've just heard a different form of language, which is around this mass participation. And I think his challenge is a good one for cities. And you're going to get a lot of reference today, Victor, aren't you? You're like our reference point. We all come back to and use you as a case study. But I think it is an interesting point, isn't it? That everybody wants eyeballs on a sport activity. Everybody wants, the competing athletes, the casual participant athletes, if they were participants, and they want friends, families, etc., being out for the day, seeing a live event of any description, which people always enjoy. So I hope that's left you something to think about. Chris genuinely would be more than happy to speak to you. You can see he's a very open sort of guy. So have a think about it, okay? Because again, his hint was, which we keep coming back to, some rights are very expensive, and they are. And okay, most of those rights holders will tell you they have proven, facts, figures, etc., to host their events. Okay, that's good, and I'm sure that is true. But it can put some people off when they hear of a very large number at the beginning. And inevitably, all bosses have bosses who have bosses who have bosses, which involves sign-off and the right. So I hope what we'll be exposing today is that some of the sports that are really basically almost at your fingertips and things that you could do. So I hope that was a great example of that. Is Pascal in the room at the moment? Tupo's asked me to give a couple of minutes while she's trying to load a video. Pardon? Oh, sorry, it's Olivia. Sorry, so Olivia, but are we good to go? Is the question? No, it's the technical point, unfortunately. Yeah, we're good to go. Okay. So Olivia, welcome. We saw each other only a couple of weeks ago in Montpellier. I want to give you the maximum amount of time, but I am going to big you up before we start. So I went down to the Urban Sports events and the summit just a couple of weeks ago. I'd never had really any understanding whatsoever of what this was involved. And we joked about it a little bit. My journey started when I got into a sort of minibus to go to the event, surrounded by young athletes. Oh, you love to come this way, apparently, Olivia. So forgive me. You have to stand close to me. It's not a personal thing, buddy. I know we're keen to work together, but. And I've never felt so old. I know I am old, right? But I've never felt so old in all my life with these athletes who are, head to toe, nothing inappropriate, tattooed and the rest of it. And some of the most modest, incredible guys. When I met, Jason and the rest, who, a Tokyo Olympic gold medalist, the world champions amongst it. And I think the comments that your team made was, why aren't these athletes getting the recognition that, these famous other athletes are getting? So we've heard about the tech ball journey. I think you guys have, as we're going to hear, have actually been around a long time, but the visibility of what you're doing, I would argue, is just coming online now. And let me just make this final comment. The activation done by Hurricane in Montpellier was incredible. So I came back as a convert. So with that, I'll hand over to you, and we'll look forward to what you're going to say.
All right, thank you, Denis. Should I take this microphone?
Yes.
All right.
And as I break the rules as well, you've got to stop for the camera if you wouldn't mind staying in that footprint.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. All right. So good morning, everyone. I'm Olivier. I'm International Development Director for Hurricane Group. Before to enter the company back in 2001, first of all, I am a rider, passionate by this sport since 1985, and still riding now with my kids. So Hurricane basically, okay, here is the, can I move? All right, so we're gonna talk of urban sports or action sports. What we call urban sport or action sport gathers several sports, from cycling with BMX freestyle, skateboarding, roller freestyle, also parkour, breaking, wakeboarding. These are the urban sports, also called action sports. So I will tell you quickly about Hurricane. So Hurricane was created in 1987. And I can't talk of Hurricane Group without mentioning the FIS. So FIS stands for Festival International of Sport Extreme. This event was created in 1987, and then the founder Hervé launched the company right after. It's an event who gather all these sports in a single venue downtown, and it's a free ticketing event. So the goal since day one is to promote these sports as a whole, not one by one. They are all of them, they are niche sports, even if they are booming these days. And the idea from the beginning was to gather all this community, to make them stronger and to expose them to a wider audience and not only the mainstream. So FIS is definitively our flagship event, and indeed we just finalized the 25th edition 10 days ago. Unfortunately, we couldn't stage the event in Montpellier during two years because of the COVID. And during these 2 years, we developed the eFIS. So in 2020, we did a digital event where we distribute the same amount of prize money to the athletes. It was a worldwide competition online with rules, international federations involved, where the riders need to do some tricks, runs, and are voted by the judge and the audience. So Hurricane, since 1987, has yearly organized the FIS in Montpellier and also in other destinations. In 2014, we decided to go abroad, and we have created the FIS World Series, which is an event like in Montpellier in several cities, Chengdu in China, Hiroshima in Japan. We've done 3 years in Edmonton, Canada, Denver, USA, Malaysia, Andorra. So all these cities have hosted the FIS World Series, which was in 2014 totally not in collaboration with the international federations. And in 2016, we partner with some international federation. The first was the UCI, and we are now the exclusive organizer of the BMX Freestyle World Cup for the UCI until 2028, and which is an Olympic sport since Tokyo, and also the UCI BMX Freestyle Flat World Cup. So yeah, working with this international federation also allow us to work with some Olympic Games organizing committee in Buenos Aires, in Tokyo, and also in Paris, where we have done some consulting services and also delivery of services and field of play. So we are 60 people working all year long in the company. We have the HQ in Montpellier, and we have offices in Asia and soon in USA. So yeah, let's watch a quick video.
Shot, but I be tighter than a headlock. From a fighter with a leg lock, I'm supreme like a guillotine. You can hear the scream when they head pop. Why they do it? I had to prove it, had to keep it moving. Life is like a movie. I've been living out my own script. Don't need you, I got my own hits. Immature but on the grown.
Hello, c'est Awelis, bienvenue dans le journal du Rail. Bye.
Sooner or later you gon' slip. I'm the epitome of constant determination. You cannot get rid of me. That would be an abomination. Just an observation, not a consultation. Ain't no moderation when I'm moderating. I'm giving you all I got. So sit back, enjoy, and watch.
So Hurricane is indeed a company. We have a 360 degrees activity, event organization, as I said, with our in-house events. We also deliver services for event organizer, and more major events organizer host and stage urban sport on their events. We have a creative department as well, and we do video production and amplification for some cities, like we've done for Glasgow a year ago. And we also have a branch of the company dedicated to all the printing, the branding of the FOPs during the event. We can go on the next. So here I wanted to show you the range of in-house events that Hurricane Group can propose, apart the standalone events, and I will come back on it after this slide. So the FIS World Series runs, as I said, since 2014. We are also looking for cities on the next year. So FIS basically is an event it's a platform who gathers several World Cups. In Montpellier last 2 weeks ago, we had 7 World Cups. So the BMX Freestyle Park World Cup, the BMX Freestyle Flatland World Cup, the International Gymnastic Federation Parkour World Cup. We had two approved events by World Skate in skateboarding and in scooter. And World Cup in roller freestyle, sanctioned by World Skate, the governing body. So this is a platform with the best athletes who participate on the full tour, the full World Cup. And we have as well on the FIS amateur competition, clinics. It's a participative event. It's an event where you can watch the best riders competing for points, competing to qualify for the Olympics, because, for instance, the UCI BMX Freestyle Park World Cup is a big qualifier event for Paris 24, as it was for Tokyo. But we also have all these participative activities, the clinics, the amateur competition, which make the FIS a special event with a huge social cohesion impact on the city, apart the media exposure and the economic impact. In Montpellier, the FIS bring 15 million euros of economic impact on the city with transportation, hotels, etc. So FIS World is open. We are still looking for cities for 23 and the years after. And some of our competition will be qualifying event for Paris 24. We also have a continental series working with continental federation in Europe, but as well on different countries. We have some national tour. In France, it's called the FIS Experience Series, with several cities hosting the FIS event with several sports, and it's sanctioned by the national federations. And we have the project to launch also this kind of tour in several countries. And we have another range of events, which is FIS District. It's exhibition. We, for instance, do a FIS District activation during the Mediterranean Games in Oran, beginning of July. They don't have yet in their program the urban sports, but they want to showcase some of these activities. So we have this option with exhibition and clinics. So this is, let's say, the in-house event. As I told you, on this event, especially on the FIS World, we have the International Federation blessing, let's say. And we, since 2022, we also deliver and propose to the city some standalone events. We have in Brussels, the first weekend of July, the second stop of the World Cup, UCI BMX Freestyle World Cup, it's only the BMX Freestyle with some activities around made by the local organizing committee. We can also deliver the UCI BMX Freestyle Flatland World Cup with some opportunity. Of course, the calendar is closed for 22 for the park discipline. For the flatland, it's still open. We had to cancel a stop in Hiroshima at the beginning of the year because of the COVID. We have to cancel one in China also. And a stop of the World Cup was planned in Moscow in September, so obviously it's cancelled. So for 22, and because it's not an Olympic discipline, we still can add a stop of this UCI BMX Freestyle Flatland World Cup. World Dance Sport Federation also worked with us, and last week in Montpellier we had the first Breaking for Gold World Series, which is one of the highest event in their portfolio. As you may know, breaking is now included for Paris 24, as it was for Buenos Aires 2018. And there are also a lot of opportunity for the cities to host, again, as a standalone event or within the FIS World Series, one of the Breaking for Gold World Series from 23 and ahead. World Skate Roller Freestyle World Cup also is part of our portfolio. Skateboarding and roller freestyle and scooter freestyle approved event by World Skate. And these two disciplines are interesting because they are applying for LA 28, most likely. And I was visiting the expo here, and we can all believe that more urban sport will be integrated in the Summer Olympics, as it was for the Winter Olympics. Parkour, wakeboarding, cable wakeboarding, roller freestyle and scooter have some chance to be in, and to host this event before the integration is also a way to be to exist in this community. The FIG Parkour World Cup is also possible to stage as a standalone event, and the IWWF Two Tower World Cup. This is a wakeboarding with a cable with two pylons. And we partner with the International Water Ski and Wakeboard Federation to organize, promote and organize their World Cup. Also in the view to integrate this discipline in the games, in LA or maybe in Brisbane, with a system which is easy to set up, easy to shoot, because it's just two pylons and the full pylons, the full cable wakeboarding is more tough to implement. So this is, we believe, with the federation also a discipline who can integrate the games. So yeah, for events, in-house event with the FIS events or standalone event included in an existing event or as an event itself. And we also deliver event consultancy services, FOP rental services, creative agency, and dressing and branding. So as I said before, you may host some events where you need to implement the urban sports, and we can support you as Hurricane, as we have done with Buenos Aires 2018 and Tokyo 2020. We have made some consultancy for them. So unfortunately in Tokyo they didn't activate the festival because no public was allowed. But in Buenos Aires, for instance, we have worked with the organizing committee ahead to work on the layout, which activity, how to make these sports not only a competition, but to keep them as they are. It's not only about the performance. This sport, it's also culture, it's also art. In Buenos Aires, for instance, we have opened the BMX Freestyle Park after the competition to the local community, and all the BMX Freestyle riders were able to ride on an Olympic venue. So we can support you on the event concept, on the delivery and event management, also on the sports management, of course, together with the International Federation, the live broadcasting, and all the video production. FOP rental services, of course, we rent FOP like we did for Tokyo 2020. We have delivered the BMX Freestyle Park, so we can also be part of your event with that kind of services. And so yeah, we do parks also for events and also for permanent purpose. We often leave the park as a legacy to the host city. So with portable skate park, permanent skate park, and by the way, if your city have a permanent skate parks, we can also organize a BMX freestyle, skateboard, or scooter event on the existing FOP, if it's good enough to stage an international event. We also do concrete temporary skate parks, as we did, we can see on the picture, in 2019 in Montpellier. So it's a skate park with the concrete, which is the riding surface mandatory by World Skate, on a temporary infrastructure. So no need to destroy after. And we also have a branch called Hurricane Tracks. We do pump tracks. So I think I am out of time. Just a last video, and it's finished. Thank you very much. And just a last info, we have still few weeks to secure the 2023 calendar, especially for the UCI BMX Freestyle Park World Cup, because next year will be the beginning of the qualifying period. So by the end of August, we need to close the calendar, and I will be happy to talk with some of you if you are keen to discuss the staging of one of these events in your city next year. Thank you very much.
Olivia, thank you very much indeed. And it was a very comprehensive brief. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think the thing to get across is that this is really a very exciting area that could be integrated with other sports. And having seen it myself, as I said, I'm a total convert for everything you're doing. And you know, I think do have a big think about. It's not very often that we can stand in front of you and say somebody's giving you the opportunity to host soon. And actually, that is the big takeaway for me. So if you are interested, please speak soon. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So Valeria, if you could come and join me, please, about Baseball 5, that would be great to hear about that. This is an example of what we talked about yesterday. Thank you very much for coming to see us. This is an example, again, of a federation that's innovating or a sport that's innovating. So I don't want to steal much more of your time, but we're absolutely delighted that you've come along to speak to us, and I hope you find the engagement of great use.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Not sure. We prepared a small video from the past just to give you a little
Just coming.
project, so I can wait for it and then make a small introduction. Okay, my name is Valerio Cianfoni. I'm head of special projects at World Baseball Softball Confederation. I started in PR and communications. Thank you. And then I've been assistant to the president for a few years, always cherishing the little Baseball 5 project on the side. I fully understand when my friend from TechBall mentions time. Time is very important when you want to push a project forward. And currently I serve as special project, following closely on Baseball 5 and eSport, which is another branch that we are very quickly developing. We started Baseball 5 as a development tool. We were looking for easier, more accessible way to teach the basic principles of baseball and softball that are so different from many other sports. After 5 years, notwithstanding 2 years of pandemic, we find ourselves with over 80 countries playing the sport, 150,000 active players, and the demand from our members to provide a more structured support in terms of grassroots development and high-end pinnacle events. Just now I was working on the World Cup contract for this year. Baseball 5 has struck our leadership because of the acceptance that has received from our community. Besides few stopping points, as baseball and softball are very traditional sports, so as you can see, we removed all the structural complexities that are part of our game, of our traditional game, and we leveled it up to the roots, to the base, to the ground. So currently, you can play baseball only with a ball and a flat surface. We added to it some flavor and components which are trending in the sports movement today, which are gender balance, accessibility, urban flavor, that's the panel today, and also I was asking about the level of investment because it is what I'm looking for now. This is what we're looking for now. We have a product, we own a sport, not like the other sports, baseball and softball or many other federation. Here we have a brand, we have a concept, it's trademarked, it's part of our game. So it's also a bit of a product and we want to take it to the next level. So frankly, with Baseball 5, we have created a format, a game format. It's an only mixed gender sport. So we do not run so far, we don't envision to run, at least for this first Olympic cycle, men competition and female competition. We promote the sport, only mixed gender. We are very proud to have been able to, through the years, tweak the rules, distances, the equipment, to the extent where skill is rewarded over strength. Therefore, the female and the male component in each team are equally important to the success at the end of the competition. This has been a point that received a lot of criticism from athletes even, from coaches, but then eventually we found it extremely beneficial when we promote the game, especially to schools that are from the beginning our primary target for development. The goal here is to have a tool that can be in the schools so that everybody across a generation in a given country is exposed to the basic principles of baseball and softball. This would allow then the major sports, the traditional sports, to be understood easily across all markets, not only our traditional markets, Central America, Japan, Korea, United States, Canada, the Netherlands, a little bit in Australia, where baseball is dominating even as a major professional sport, but has struggled for over 50 years to be developed in other key areas, in other key countries. And we found out that was because of the lack of understanding of the game principles. The game principles are completely different. The game is circular. Most of the other sports are horizontal. So either you have these principles, let's say, in your culture, or it's very difficult for you for a person let's say, from a teenage and adult age to grasp the concepts that are behind, that are governing and regulating the game itself. In 2020, the International Olympic Committee included Baseball 5 as medal event for the Youth Olympics. This was even a surprise for us when we received the interest, because we published the first sets of rules were published middle of 2018. So it means that a year and a half after, already was recognized by the IOC and included in one of their competitions, one of their events. So you can imagine for our national federations, there was a huge boost in terms of being able to then talk to their National Olympic Committee. It is very hard for a non-baseball and softball country to get funding from the National Olympic Committee, to get the sport in the schools, to talk to potential sponsors and founders and just gain resources to develop the game. With this one, we promote it under all you need is a ball and play everywhere. So I was talking with a couple of you in the room yesterday and was saying that basically we took this from football, where all you need is a flat surface and a ball, and then the game is scalable and accessible. So we try to use these key elements of football, which are part of why football is so popular and has developed so widely across the globe, together with the founding principle of baseball and softball. And then we came up with this tool that, frankly, just exploded inside the federation. And now we aren't really sure what path to take for it. We don't really want to overshadow our main disciplines. But yeah, that's a bit the story of our Baseball 5. I'm sorry I couldn't prepare anymore. I was just in Tanzania to run the African Championship, where, for example, we had 9 teams participating, something that had never happened. I don't know how many of you has worked in Africa, organizing an international event for the African continent. We never had over, I think, 5 or 6 teams in an African championship. And this was the first of Baseball 5. Already 10 registered, then 1 didn't make it. And from all across, so people actually managed to get flights to be there, pay their accommodation. And well, they need a little bit of help for the technical aspect. But in the end, we were even surprised by the technical level and the athleticism that the athletes were able to deliver during that event. I don't know if you have any specific question. I'm here now and later. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much indeed. And it didn't matter that you didn't have a presentation. You're such an eloquent speaker that you didn't need to worry. Are there questions from you guys? Because I just love this thing, all you need is a ball. It just sort of says it all, really, doesn't it? The thing that struck me, if you look at what the urban sports guys are doing, where they've brought quite a number of disciplines together. Here we go, another tech ball reference. I mean, but there could be, sort of a festival of these sorts of sports. And I think it was canoeing that a while ago realised that unless you're a paddler, a canoeing discipline per se as a spectator sport, and unless it's something that really is your sport, is not that attractive to go. And they grouped together, I think it was something like 8 canoeing disciplines together. So it became a sort of, hey, look, over there there's this and over there there's that. And I just wonder whether that's something you might be thinking about, of budding up with some other sports and just, creating this more mass participation.
Like an urban event cluster.
Yeah, something like that. Whatever those naturally aligned events actually are. Street basketball or something. Yeah.
It definitely aligns with our vision for it. Then there is always the question, when we promote the new sport, we often refuse to do it. Most often we refuse to go in a place to set up a Baseball 5 event because we are not sure of the quality of the local athletes involved.
That's interesting, yeah.
So when we present something, there is a last picture in this video. Maybe it's difficult to grasp. It's a Cuban athlete. Cuba really helped us developing this game. We did the research. Every country that has baseball and softball in their culture, they have a reduced street school version for it. They're just not standardized. So we ran across, see how they're doing it in Japan, how they're doing it in the US, how they're doing it in Cuba. And then Cuba has a sport, it's called Cuatro Esquina, where they walk, they hit with the hand just on the side of the street. They play it actually in the street corner. There's very little cars in Cuba anyways. The guy hits the ball with his bare hand at 75 miles an hour.
Oh my God.
The ball is not soft.
Oh my God.
It was one of the most difficult part of developing the sport was technically develop the ball, because if it's too soft and too light, you can't really throw it fast across the court when you play defense. But if it's too hard and heavy, you can't really hit it with a bare hand because it's gonna hurt you. It took us a year and a half to get the final specs. Obviously, we started from something available in the market, and then asking, maybe a little softer, maybe a little harder, maybe. And now we have the ball, and it's also a problem, actually, the ball, to be honest, because it is not cheap to produce. We only use natural rubber for sustainability, of course, natural rubber or recycled material. It's in the, what is it
A
called?
charter, would it be? Or,
It's a specification.
yes, I mean, tech spec. Yeah, I mean, technical spec for the actual ball.
The tech spec and the analysis that we do. You know, we
Oh, I
send the
see.
ball to
Yeah,
a
the
lab. The
evaluate.
lab needs to
Yeah.
analyze them, and yes, that's those are the specs. And then the ball is somewhere in between the baseball and the softball. So we really try to. The B5 we choose because B stands for baseball, and the 5 is, of course, is the number of players and number of innings. But initially the code name was street baseball. So now we have B5 where the B is baseball and the 5 is the S of softball. You do not imagine how much trouble we got from the softball guys. It's like, what are you doing? Really, some of the biggest battles we have fought internally for this sport it's incredible. It's like if I tell two people outside the federation, they say it wouldn't make any sense. Why do they do this? But no, it's been a very fun project, and I think it's just starting. I think this is just starting because we want it as a development tool. Actually, initially it was included in the level 1 baseball and softball grassroots course. So for people, when we send instructor to a country, when they do level 1, they were using Baseball 5 as one of the classes to teach the mechanisms, and that's it. That's how it started. In Burundi, at the Friendship Games, I don't know if you were there in 2018 or 2017. We started in 2017 with street baseball, and I remember writing the first rule book on the plane in French. So only myself was understanding probably. and we said, if it works here, it works everywhere. Because you get there, people have no idea, and they've never seen a baseball game. They've never seen like a baseball glove or even a game on TV. And quickly, by the afternoon, they were able already to play the first game. So I called president and say, okay, we have to do this. It's working here. It will work. And now I'm honest. We have World Cup. We have Youth Olympics. We're doing continental championships. We're working on like some sort of ATP structure, like FIBA is doing with 3x3 now, with lower tier, middle tier, higher tier, and world finals for club events or individuals. But there it comes in terms of resources. There's one man part-time working on the project. That's where we are.
Can I just say that I think we detect a little bit of passion for what you're doing? I mean, I often call guys like you crusaders.
No.
You know.
Because you see the potential. Like you
Of
see
course,
that people have a lot of
absolutely.
fun. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun for the people, and the fact that you have boys and girls together.
Yeah, and mixed teams. I thought it was very interesting. Yeah.
Something I just learned last week, and I stop after that. I promise you. When we go to, I don't know, the U18 Baseball World Cup, U23 Baseball World Cup, these are groups of 35 peak hormone, full-on athletes. They do not bond with each other. They don't even want to look at each other. They walk by each other on the locker room, on the dugout. They don't really like. It's war inside the field and outside the field, right? Imagine now 30 big men. They're huge, these guys. And the female, they're not different in softball. They're not different. Here, we're talking about a group of 4 boys and 4 girls. They're probably friends between each other. It's like a school camp. And then you see when they eat between the games, when they're at the lobby of the hotel, the posts they do on social media, they really bond together. And I think this is also a good, I don't want to call it selling point. I'm not really here to try to sell too much the events. We don't have a calendar that we can really sell because we have so few events and so many of our members interested already to have them. But and maybe in a couple of years, yes, we will. But yeah, it's something I learned, and it was fascinating. Yeah, the ability of this balance between boys and girls to be together also after the event or during the went in between games.
Well, I think it ticks. It's a cliche, ticks so many boxes, doesn't it? And thank you for lifting the lid and explaining this to us. And as I said, it is online and people will be able to access it. And I would guess anyway, despite the fact you don't have that schedule, my advice, as always, to the cities would be get in touch and just see, whether there is mutual interest. But no, a round of applause. I think it's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much indeed for having been so busy. Good, thank you, my friend.